A couple of clients we have seen like 10x kind of a growth over the last 3 years, right? And it has been possible only because we are able to streamline a lot of our standardized processes and then focus more on the typical performance aspect only.
Hey, good morning and welcome to this series. We have with us a esteemed guest, Dharmin. My name is Manoj and we are going to have this very interesting conversation today on the topic called as business transformation. So, welcoming Dharmin, we are going to leverage your expertise, your experience in the topic called as business transformation. So, before we jump into the conversation, Dharmin, what I want to hear about is you manage one of the very important portfolio at Sokrati called as Aztec, which is very instrumental in various initiatives. So why don't you throw some light on what Aztec does and what is you and more about you?
Right. Thank you so much, Manoj, for having me here. Happy to be here. Something about Aztec, this is something which we started around 6-7 years ago, where we noticed that there were some operational issues which were going on, and instead of working it out in silos, we thought that it would be better if we solve it from the center. Right. So that is where Aztec came into being, and that is where we started off. Now, since we started way back, right, we were able to solve a lot of our client issues, or in terms of so to say, a lot of the issues which the general industry used to face, we kind of started solving it way early on, right? I mean, to start it off around 6-7 years ago, we started off with solving some execution issues, right? With respect to ticketing and a lot of our execution efforts, right? Moving on from there, there was a lot of effort being taken into collaboration within the teams, right? Next level which we went into was more into how can we leverage this into better business outcomes in terms of understanding what are the levers which you can work upon and then leveraging them to enhance the entire ecosystem, right? And we are moving forward into the next level of maturity into the whole ecosystem, and that is how we are progressing. Also, since we have this ecosystem into into the organization, we have a lot of the decision making based out of data, and we are able to do that only because we are able to measure it in the first place. Absolutely. Which is actually benefiting us in taking a lot of decision making with a good data backing, which is lagging in a lot of other agencies within the industry. And that is what is helping us manage the typical chaos of agency in a better way. Like COVID has been a very good example where we have been able to manage the employee management and the way how we want to deliver to the client in a much better way compared to many other competitors of ours, right? And one of the primary reasons have been because of the existence of Aztec in the center, where we are able to solve problems from the center, and we have a specialized team who manages things from the center.
So why don't you tell us what exactly Aztec and Dharmin have contributed to the business transformation at Sokrati?
Right. So firstly, I would like to explain what business transformation is.
Yes.
And let's start from there, and then I can work it on how we are working into managing the whole thing, right? So usually business transformation, right, it always starts with what does the client want, right? Okay. And then the levers which usually organizations have are only three levers which you can work on, right? The first one is people, right? Where people needs to change, and because they are the ones who are dealing with everything, right? The second is processes which kind of help the people run the show, right? And the third is the tech which is present, right? Because the better tech, the better processes, and the better people management and the servicing as a whole, right? Yes. The expertise involved in that, right? Now, as the organizations grow, right, with respect to maturity as well as business, right, you need to have you need these transformations happening within the business and within the organization. And for that thing to happen, right, it's important that we change people's mindset as well as behavior from a people standpoint. From a process standpoint, we need to make our processes very, very simpler, right? And with respect to the tech, we need to ensure that we're using the best and enhanced technology to be able to manage the show. All three put together, right, gives you that delivery which you are looking for. And for any kind of business transformation, which we want to work on, right, which eventually going to help our customers, all three needs to be linked and connected together.
Absolutely. Great. So you, the one behind the scenes who has orchestrated this very well, how did you make happen? Give us some examples or certain stories which has worked in the back end for the benefit of our customers.
Right. All right. So one of the first things which I would like to discuss is something which we did for our employees, which eventually helped our customers as well. Right. So one thing which we noticed was that if you wanted to drive some kind of a change or some kind of a transformation for our organization, right, it wasn't really going till the end, or probably wasn't really driven through a proper kind of a structure, right?
Absolutely.
So that is where we introduce some kind of an evaluation mechanism kind of a thing, right, within our ecosystem, where goals were being provided to individuals at a proper level, and those were being mapped, from top to bottom, top down approach kind of a thing, right? So just so that we ensure that if a decision making has been done based on, say, a client feedback which we received through a CSI feedback, right? A common feedback which we received through CSI, we would like to translate it into some kind of a goal where we are improving our efforts till the ground, right? So we introduced some kind of a structure there in order for us to run the whole thing. Now that we have run it for around 3 years, everybody has become so used to the whole thing that everything runs through that, right? So to be honest, when we started it, it was a little tough. It took quite a bit of an effort to change people's mindset and behavior with respect to the whole thing, because the process front was easier, but then the mindset of the people took time for convincing people to do it. Timely completion of things were a lot of trouble, right? The other example which I wanted to talk about, right, where we noticed that there were a lot of clients which we were servicing, right? But then are we servicing them right? So that is where we identified actually a couple of CTQs for our clients, right? CTQ is critical to quality. So basically, if you go to an airplane, right, what is important for you as a customer, right? The first important thing is safety, right? Second is probably proper sitting, right? Yes. Third is the environment which is there. All these things are CTQs, right? In order to meet these CTQs, right, what would the airline do? Mm-hmm. So he would have certain set of things which he would do, right? So that is where in our ecosystem we identified such things, right? And then we identified those things and we mapped it. And we started measuring those things over a period of time, and that helped us understand that in our individual accounts or individual clients which we serve, right, which areas are we lacking behind, which areas are we doing a good job, which helped us identify our efforts, where do we need to concentrate, right? That not just helped our leadership, but also in general in terms of the concentration of effort to be put in, or in terms of where is a wider approach required to be solved, right? Is there a bigger problem to be solved for? Correct. Right? So that is what we looked into, and these were the two things which I wanted to discuss, and it did take quite some time when both of these things started, trust me, but then today it's been more of like a regular BAU kind of a thing, right? Where everybody knows, okay, this is where I'll go, I'll check it out, and I'll know things that, okay, this is the area where I have to work for, and this is where I get it.
Would you like to bring about a success story of a customer who sees now the benefit of this business transformation or such processes that you have brought in?
Right. So we had one of these OTT clients, right, which we served, right? We did have a lot of effort being put into this account, which were going into reporting and all the other reporting and campaign launches and a lot of calls and this and that. We worked out that, okay, this is where we are having a lot of concerns with respect to, even though we putting a lot of effort, right, we are not getting that much of a return in terms of the outcome, right? So in terms of one of the bigger outcomes which we look for in our span is the performance which we deliver for our clients, right? But even after putting a lot of effort, that performance wasn't coming in, right? So surely we looked into it, okay, this where could be the problem, right? We called in a few experts to look into that, look into those accounts and check them out, right? And that is where we identified a couple of gaps, right? And when we worked on it, right, it really helped us improve the performance for that OTT client. And this is something which we did on a couple of e-commerce clients as well, right? And surely that account mapping, account scorecard with CTQs, which we did, really helped us scale that up, right? I mean, a couple of clients we have seen like 10x kind of a growth over the last 3 years, right? And it has been possible only because we are able to streamline a lot of our standardized processes and then focus more on the typical performance aspect only, right? And quickly you reach on to, or quickly you clear off all those, or kind of iron out all those issues, right? The quicker you get on to the proper business where you need to concentrate on. So that's the idea here.
On the business transformation perspective, would you like to share some hurdles which Aztec and your team has faced and you managed to overcome them?
Right. So there are 3 major pillars which I could work on, right? People, process, and tech, right? And tech and process are actually a little easier to solve for. The major problem is with respect to people, because the hurdle is more around changing their behavior, right? And the acceptance, right? That hey, I need to move from X to Y, right? That is something which takes quite a bit of acceptance, right? So that is usually an issue which comes up. Also, the governance on the regular BAUs become a little difficult because it's easier to change something overnight, but then to run it on a consistent basis is something which is difficult. So that is something surely takes a lot of effort and hurdles early on, right, to implement it for a longer run.
Absolutely. For becoming a personality like Dharmin Tailor, who has, tried to lay the plinth of this whole initiative and bring about it, what are those qualities that make Dharmin Tailor?
I mean, the first thing, right, you need to be very, very comfortable with ambiguous situations, right? Now, there's something which has really helped me, all right? The more ambiguous the situation, the better you would be, because you have a bigger space to work on, right? And one of the things which I learned in MBA is everything can be modelized, right? And that has really helped me. Any problem I look at, ambiguous, I'm in. That is the first thing.
Like thriving in chaos.
Yeah, I love it. The second one is I follow these things, right? That you always think good about things, and then you speak good and you act good, right? You take that approach and it really works out, right? And sometimes making those small gestures to people, even a thank you email once in a while to one of your colleagues, right, really helps you thrive at a lot of other places, right? So I think that is something which I really do. The other thing is, you need to focus on the controllables. Now, there's something which MS Dhoni keeps on telling people, but most of the people just ignore. But see, you only have a couple of parameters which are under your control. If you only focus on them, I think we are better off solving your problems, right? There are people who, try to make things very, very complicated instead of keeping things simple, and that is where they have a little problem around it, right? The second thing around the whole thing is that I don't believe that, I believe that you can get better at anything which you pick, right? It's something which as a kid, a lot of us were told that hey, you can't be good at everything. But what I've realized over period is, right, I surely can't be the best, but then I can be somewhere which is good enough, right? So that is something if you believe in, right? Now, when I joined Sokrati, I wasn't really good at automation or coding, but if you go and reach out to people, or even you would know that I'm very good at it today, right? And it hasn't really been 4 years, only been 4 years, and I've been able to conquer something, right? Like automation, which a lot of people are scared of, right? Now, the other aspect around the whole thing is the change management thing, right? Now, here I have a couple of ideas, right? The first thing is, and this is something which I'm working on as well, right? First thing is you should stop demanding things from people. Right? Most of the people scare people off with demanding things. I believe that if you stop demanding things, things work out for you eventually. The second concept which I have is the angel's cocktail versus the devil's cocktail, right? Now, usually people try to bring in a change with a shock, right? Once in a while, right? Directly bring about a change and then they want things to be done overnight. Absolutely. Now, it's not usually sustainable, is what I've found, right? You need to sell your story. Right? Absolutely. Whatever you want to change, you need to sell it out with people. Okay, use all the tactics which is a mix of an angel's cocktail, right? Which is more around you use your drama skills, your humor skills, your convincing skills, and you have that suspense around the whole thing, and you build it up and you sell it, right, to the people. Because the easier or the quicker you solve for this, right, the quicker you're going to be able to have that change implemented, right? And because change is always going to be through people, changing their mindset and behavior is going to take time. And until unless you convince them, I don't think it's going to work out, right? Next thing which I wanted to talk about is, right, all your repetitive tasks, whatever repetitive task you have, you should always have a checklist, right? Okay. So that you don't miss out and you keep on updating that checklist, right? Which is something which I learned from, or I read it from Warren Buffett somewhere, right, in one of the things, and he has been able to sustain it over a longer period of time. When I have used it, it has helped me as well, right? So this is something which I feel people should use. The next one which I want to talk about is being observant, right? Now, most of the problems which we face, right, actually the solution for it is actually around us, right? A lot of the things, right? A lot of the solutions which or problems solved by me are from ideas which I got from a few movies, TV series, a lot of initiatives taken by the government, right? Or some private companies or public sector companies of sort, right? So a lot of the things is something which you learn from there. You pick out something from a few books, and that is something which really helps out. And that is something which people should really use. And one of the last thing which is like a very, very important thing which I feel is we need to focus on factfulness, right? Most of the people love taking decisions based on their gut feeling, right? And it may be effective in some ways, but in the longer run it doesn't help out, is what I've found out, right? There is a very famous book on factfulness by Hans Rosling, and it's very nice. And if you just follow that, right, it's very nice that he has this thing. If you have some hypothesis, it's good enough. You test it with data and check it out. If it works out, you please implement it. Because now that you have a data backing, it gives you that confidence of fixing things. And I think if you work on a couple of these ones, I think you'll get there.
I think that was quite interesting, Dharmin. You have covered quite a span, because what you are managing, the Aztec is managing, which is so important and integral for making our customers happy, which is very important and integral part. And not just once, but again and again is very true. I had the good fortune of working with you for last 3 years. So I would like a brief about you on this aspect, because it's highly influential in the whole governance of this business transformation and change management. So how do you, this whole piece of managing time, prioritization, adhering, and not only for self, but for everyone?
Right.
Quick, I'll be very interested.
I mean, okay. So one of the first things which when I joined, right, I realized that, hey, there are a lot of important but redundant things which are present, right? And then it didn't really need a human intervention or human decision making to be able to execute it, right? Okay. And that is where I took up automation as one of my things. And then if you ask anybody, they keep on getting a lot of emails from me, but I'm not even online at that moment, just because it's all automated, right? There are a lot of processes which are automated, and that is how we have been managed to run a lot of processes and ensure that things are there without a human intervention kind of a thing, right? Now that is surely one of the things which I have personally worked on, and is something which is helpful for everybody, right? Something which if you are able to automate a few things, it helps you out in a big way, right? The second important thing is as you mentioned, prioritization, but in this, right, it's important to understand one aspect, right? I mean, everybody should have a number in front of you that, okay, this is what, an imaginary number of sort, right? Now, this is what I am worth, right? Any task which is not that value, worth that value, should either be given to somebody else or automated, right? Now, that is something which everybody should think about, right? And that is how you should prioritize things, right? Because what happens usually is, right, we end up doing a lot of work which is not really worth our time, right, of sort, right? And as you move up the ladder, it's very, very important for us to understand that, okay, is this something which is to be only done by me? Can this be picked up by somebody else? If yes, then why not give it off, right? The more you give up, the better you get at things, right? Is something which is very, very important. And with respect to governance, right, there is no right answer, right? There is no right answer. The best thing which I personally feel with respect to governance is you need to set up a proper measuring mechanism for everything, right? You set up those measuring mechanism and keep on doing it repetitively, right? So the better you get, the more you measure, the better review mechanism you would have, and the better review mechanism, the more control you'll have on things, because you surely can't micromanage everything. You need to zoom out and then look into the things from that macro point of view, right? And when you do that, you don't want to lose out on a couple of important sections of governance, right? So that is how that gets managed.
Okay, great. I think quite interesting conversation with Dharmin, and thanks Dharmin for investing this time to share on these aspects of business transformation. That was our conversation about business transformation as part of this episode. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Manoj.